They were worried about cold butt. They had to bring the heated.
Oh, look at that reaction. Look at that. What do you say? What do you know? It's the full Monte Sports Show. It is Sunday, October 9th, 2022. I am your host, Monte Perez, a.k.a. The Sports Whisperer. I want to thank everyone for tuning in last week. 37 states watched the full Monte Sports Show. I think the only 3 states that have yet to watch the full Monte Sports Show are Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So I want to thank everyone who's supporting the show. Make sure to give us a thumbs up. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to follow me on social media. You can follow me on social media, Monte Perez 231 on Twitter and on TikTok, Monte Perez 231. Again, Monte JP 231 on Twitter, Monte Perez 231 on TikTok. Over 1.5 million views and counting on TikTok. Over 1.5 million views on counting on TikTok. It is 20-10 Packers versus the Giants. I picked the Packers this week to win 20-10 at halftime. I am 42-22 picking NFL games, but we'll get to that in a minute. We have the best guests all across the country. This week is no exception. We are going to have Bill Carroll join us to talk college football, and then George Lopez will join us, talk about the Dodgers, the Rams. I think the Rams have a Super Bowl hangover, so I'm definitely worried about them, especially them playing Dallas this week. And also, he's going to talk about the Lakers. What are they doing with Russell Westbrook? Make sure to keep the comments coming. We start each show with the good, the bad, and the funny. The good, the bad, and the funny. Okay, let's get right to the good. Look, I am very impressed with the Phillies. Now, think about this, right? The Phillies and Seattle came back. The Phillies came back and scored 6 runs in the 9th inning. Do you know how hard it is to score 6 runs in a game in July that means nothing, much less 6 runs in the 9th inning on the road against St. Louis? Well, they did that and they won. And then big props, one of the best comebacks ever. Seattle was down 8-1, and they go on and they beat Toronto. Congrats to the Cleveland Guardians. And my Mets will play game 3 tonight against the Padres. Jacob deGrom pitched a little better. Lindor hit a home run last night. Pete Alonso hit a home run. And Jeff McNeil drove in a couple of runs. The Mets' big 3 definitely came through. So that's the good. The playoff baseball has been very, very exciting. Now we want to talk about the bad. Listen, there's one thing that I go nuts about, and that is do your job. I don't care if you're miserable at work. I don't care if you hate your job. I don't care if you're underpaid, overpaid. Do your job. I start prepping for this show on Wednesday. For an hour to an hour and a half show, 15 pages of notes. I'm prepared. If a guest doesn't come on, I have to fill up. If they cancel last minute, I got to fill up 30 minutes, 20 minutes. So I am more than prepared for this show. That is my motto. Outwork people, be prepared. Now, last night during the Met game, this ESPN crew is god-awful. God-awful. Now, I don't know if they don't care or I don't know if they just don't prepare. But Carl Ravitch, okay, this is Jose Reyes. Jose Reyes played with the Mets till 2011. Then he came back for 2 years, I think in 16 and 18. A good shortstop. Won the batting title 1 year, Jose Reyes. Okay? Good player. Carl Ravitch last night was calling Francisco Lindor Jose Reyes. And he did this multiple times. Multiple times. Then he says when Darren Ruff is up to bat, he's provided such an offensive spark for the Mets. What? He's batting under 200 since he's been here. When Luis Guillorme comes up, it's a trusted bat in the line. Trusted bat. The second half of the year has been awful. All he does is hit into double plays. And again, you're calling Francisco Lindor, Jose Reyes multiple times. Do you not do one idle of prep work, dude? You know, again, do your job. I don't care how much you get paid. Be prepared. We see this all the time with Chris Collinsworth. He'll say something. He was talking about a defensive player a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I want to see him because he's putting up a lot of numbers, and I don't know if he's getting double teamed or he's just taking on one offensive lineman. Chris, you have access to film. You have access to video more so than I do. Shouldn't you know that a guy that you're covering, you do one game a week? Shouldn't you know the guy who you're covering is being double teamed or not? Again, Carl Ravitch calling Francisco Lindor Jose Reyes multiple times. There's no explanation for that. It is lazy. It is not being prepared. It is just it's absolutely it's offensive, to be honest with you. It's offensive, to be honest with you. So yeah, that is just a disgusting display of broadcasting. And look, I pay for the Major League Baseball package. Okay, I watch Major League Baseball. Why can't I have a choice of who I'm going to watch? I don't want to listen to Carl Ravitch. I don't want to listen to David Cohen. I don't want to listen to these guys. They're horrible. They don't know the Mets. They don't even know the Padres. And they're just winging it. If I have a guest on my show, for example, if I have Brad Ward on my show to come on and talk about the Browns, you better make sure that I'm listening. Bet your damn dollar I'm listening to Cleveland Browns radio that week. I'm going on their stats. I'm getting myself familiar with the team. Because the worst thing you want to do is be the host or an announcer and not have any feel for what the team is doing or what they're talking about. And by the way, you're all friends here. Talk to Ron Darling. Talk to Gary Cohn. Give Keith Hernandez a call. Say, hey, what can I expect? I'm just so tired of these guys making millions of dollars and they do no prep work. None. None. Okay. So, ESPN, really, you got to do better, man. My mom asked me this week. My mom said, do you wish there were more female announcers? And I said, Mom, I never watch a game based on an announcer. Now, I like Joe Tessitore, who announces college football for ESPN. I like a bunch of people. But this broadcast, and they're getting shredded on social media. ESPN, do better. When you're calling, again, when you're calling Francisco Lindor, Jose Reyes over and over and over again, Carl Ravitch, either you had a few cocktails before the game, or you're just not prepared, or you don't care. Whatever those three are, it's unacceptable. Now, one more thing to the bet. Okay, so it is literally over for the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson. This has been a disaster. A disaster. Look at KJ Hamler here. He slammed his helmet down because he was wide open and Russell didn't see him at the end of the game. The Broncos are 31st in the league in points scored. They are 29th in the league converting on third down, only 30%. Now, I know they just said that Russell Wilson, there's something wrong with his shoulder. He had to get some injections. Okay. But when you have fans walking out of the stadium during a tie game and not staying for overtime, that's a problem. And here's another problem that people aren't realizing here. If you cannot outplay an aging Matt Ryan and the fans are like, we're losing to Matt Ryan, what are you going to do when you face Patrick Mahomes? What are the fans going to do when they see Justin Herbert throwing for 380 yards? Russell Wilson can't beat Matt Ryan or outplay him. Denver's in trouble. You've heard of Houston, we have a problem. Denver, we have a problem. Okay, that's the good, the bad. Now let's get to the funny. So I would have fun. Broadcasters we mentioned before. Anytime they have a weird name, they always panic a little bit. But I wouldn't panic with it. There's a player on a France team, and his name is Ho You Fat. That is not a typo. That is not superimposed. His name is Ho You Fat. I mean, and they asked one of the broadcasters about it. He goes, when I first, I get people would tweet at me like, "What are you doing? Why are you talking about your wife, your ex-girlfriend, blah blah blah?" No, that's the guy's name, Ho You Fat. Oh, thank you everyone for joining in. Look at LC reporting live from the airport in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Very nice. Our friend Laura, she was doing work. Saw her posted nice pictures on Facebook. She was doing work for disaster relief, so shout out to her. Shout out to everyone watching. Someone just said the chat room's acting up again. Just keep them coming. We'll get them live. All right. Now, I am 42-22 picking NFL games. 42-22 picking NFL games. We're going to go through these games today in like 5 minutes, and then we're going to get Bill Carroll on to talk college football. All right, the first game, I'm 42-22. Let's build up that winning percentage. Jets at Dolphins. 3-1 Jets at the 2-2 Dolphins. Both of these coaches are very good friends. Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel, they've coached together. Vegas has Miami on the road, a 3-point favorite with no Tua. So what does that mean for betting fans? That means that Vegas thinks that Miami, even without Tua, is a 6-point favorite. And look at this. Sauce Gardner, please, 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 please. Why do you want to give people, especially Tyreek Hill, bulletin board material saying he's fast, but I've handled fast guys like that. Sauce Gardner's had a great year. He's a star on the rise, but come on, man. Go out and play. Don't give billboard material. I've been wrong on the Dolphins. Again, I'm 42-22 picking games. I'm 1-3 picking Dolphin games. I'm going to take the Dolphins to win here, even with Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback. I'm taking the Dolphins here, 31-20. Okay. Tom Brady's 10-0 against the Falcons, including the Super Bowl. The Falcons have been a surprise team. They're going to try to run the ball. They're going to try to keep Brady, although their offense hasn't been great. Let's be honest. Their offense hasn't been great, and the Falcons are pretty predictable. They run the ball on first down, they run the ball on second down, and then they try to get Marcus Mariota to make a play. Todd Bowles and this Tampa Bay team has taken a step back, and we thought they would. We thought they would. I've seen Todd Bowles act in with the Jets. He's not a great head coach. He's a very good coordinator, but I'm taking Tampa Bay here, 27-20. Let me tell you something. If the Falcons win this game, they're going to win 8 or 9 games, and I said they could do that this year in preseason. The Falcons are the only team in the NFL, that has covered the spread every week. They're 4-0. Okay, 2-2 Chargers at the 2-2 Cleveland Browns. Remember this game last year? It was insane. The Browns lost 47-42. I think Nick Chubb will rush for over 150 yards. Who's the only NFL player that has 100 yards from scrimmage every week so far? The only player. Some people are going to say Justin Jefferson. Some people might say Devontae Adams. Nope. Wide receiver running back, it is Nick Chubb. He's the only player to have 100 yards from scrimmage every week in the first 4 weeks. Jacoby Brissett can't win in a shootout. Justin Herbert can. Take the Chargers here, 30-24. 4-0 Eagles at the 2-2 Cardinals. Matchup of two very good quarterbacks. Kyler Murray seemed to be playing better. The Eagles are solid, 4-0, only undefeated team. But look at this. This is Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach. Look at the first 7 games, how good Cliff Kingsbury was in college. Look how awful he is the second half of the year. 16-43. What does that mean? That means the second time he faces someone or once team gets film of him, they understand what they're doing and they take it away. So if the Cardinals are going to win, it's got to be in the first 8 games of the season. I don't think they will. I think this Eagle team is the best team in the NFC right now. Take the Eagles, 27-23. 1-3 Lions at the 1-3 Patriots. Look, the Lions offense is the best in the NFL. That's not my opinion. That is fact. They are first 447 yards, and they are first in scoring, 35 points per game, but they are last in total yards, giving up on defense. The Patriots are going to do what they did to the Buffalo Bills last year when they won. They're going to run the ball probably 60 times today against that weak Lions defense. And if Dan Campbell loses this game, he should be fired. He's 4-16 as a head coach. I'm not buying what Dan Campbell is selling. Never have. Take the Patriots here. Actually, I'm taking the Lions here, 30-23, with the stipulation that I have no confidence in Dan Campbell. Shows you how bad the roster is offensively for New England. Okay, Steelers 1-3 at the 3-1 Buffalo Bills. Now, look, guys, it's embarrassing how far the Steelers have fallen. They are a 14-point underdog. First time in over a decade they've been an underdog. And we all wanted Pickett to start, right? He threw 3 interceptions last week against the Jets. Take the Bills here in a rout. That's right, a rout. 44-20. 2-2 Seahawks at the 1-3 Saints. Did anyone think Geno Smith would be this good? They won the trade with Denver. But I got to think coming off a bad loss, the Saints defense is good enough, and Geno Smith takes a step back here. I'm taking the Saints in an ugly game, 2016. Okay, everyone wants to talk about, all the teams in the NFL. How about the Jacksonville Jaguars? They are playing very good football very quickly. Urban Meyer was a disaster last year. The 0-3 Texans at the 2-2 Jags. Take the Jags here. I think this will be closer 2 quarters, and then the Jags pull away. I like the Jags winning 31-19. What's the best team in this division? Is it the Titans? Is it the Jags? Is it the Colts? We don't know. What we do know is Washington has been terrible. They may be the worst team in the NFL. I like the Titans here. If for nothing else, I just have no faith in Ron Rivera and what Washington is doing. So take the Titans here, 27-20. Chicago 2-2 at the Minnesota Vikings. The word is out on Justin Fields. He has thrown 67 times in 4 games. Matt Eberflus, I don't care if you lose. Let this kid develop. Let him make mistakes. You're not making the playoffs this year, but do not limit this guy's growth. I think Justin Fields could be a very good quarterback. Be aggressive. Take the Vikings here, though. I had the Vikings winning the division, and I still think they will. Take the Vikings 31-20. This is a nightmare game. 2-2 San Francisco 49ers for the 1-3 Panthers. I'm sitting Christian McCaffrey this week against San Francisco defense in my fantasy football. And Baker Mayfield here is holding up 1. I think he's going to have 1 win for the next 6 weeks. That's how bad Carolina has been. Baker Mayfield may have 3 turnovers in the first half of this game. Take San Francisco. I know they're banged up, but take San Francisco 30-13. Finally, Bengals at the Ravens Sunday night. Look at this stat. The Ravens have trailed for a total of 14 seconds this season. They are 2-2, and they've trailed for 14 seconds. You 4-0 with that stat. The Ravens have trailed 14 seconds all year. I said to everyone, despite their fancy new uniforms, that the Bengals were going to take a step back, and I think the Ravens and Lamar Jackson are pretty pissed off about their 2 losses. They're going to win this game in a high-scoring affair, 33-29. 33-29. Okay, there you have it. I am 42 and 22 picking games. Like to go through this about 5-10 minutes of each week. This stat is just crazy. I mean, you should be 4-0 when you've trailed 14 seconds in 4 weeks. All right, we're going to bring on the host of No Huddle Necessary, Bill Carroll. There's no one better talking college football, dressed to the 9 right now. Bill, how are you?
Well, this is my favorite time of year. You've got postseason baseball. NBA is starting to get going again, and we're in the heart of the thing that I spend most of my time, except my, I work in family and my other job. But like the number 4 priority after my family is football and my other job. Got to fight for that 3rd spot. This is it. Like I've been watching. I've had about 3.5 hours of sleep, so I've watched either live or taped about 11 games since Friday.
No, it is the best time. Yesterday, you had the playoff baseball. My Mets were involved. All my college football teams won. We're going to get to that. Oregon, UCLA. But let's start with Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M.
Sure.
A lot of people were criticizing Alabama, but when you're without your starting quarterback, your Heisman Trophy winner, I don't care how deep you are, Bill. That's going to affect you. They beat Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher has had the top 5 recruiting class in the last 3 years, and this guy's barely over 5. I mean, he's had some good seasons, but he should be 11, 12 wins every year. Is Jimbo Fisher on the hot seat, Bill?
Well, I mean, the seat's certainly getting warmer, but they play a very tough schedule, which they should. I mean, it's Texas A&M. They have all the money in the world. Their endowment is ludicrous, and they put an absolutely silly amount of money into football. Their facilities are NFL worthy, and as you said, they have a lot of talent. What they don't have, for some reason, is the ability to develop quarterbacks anymore. I don't know what happened. They used to be a place that did a pretty good job at doing it for a little while. And, say what you want about Kevin Sumlin. While he was there, I mean, King of the Thrill Hill would be welcomed if he were to walk through the door now. And obviously, Jonathan Paul Manziel is sort of a, once every few years kind of guy. But they had solid quarterback play. At one point, they had both Kyle Allen and, of course, Kyler Murray at the same darn time. But, of course, they had them at the same darn time, which meant they both left. Because you can't have two quarterbacks.
Right.
But this is they're one quarterback away, which sounds funny to say about Texas A&M, from being a real threat in the SEC. Their defense is pretty good. I mean, I don't know if you watched, but it wasn't like Alabama was just going up and down the field. They gave Alabama trouble. And, I mean, Mr. Milroe is a freak. So it's not like, even though he's inexperienced, he may be more physically talented. I just be careful I'm saying it. He's not as football smart yet, but he may be more physically talented than Bryce Young. He's got a rare level of talent and a unique set of skills, as they say. He's a little like Jalen Hurts, only naturally bigger frame, and I think a stronger arm. He's like I say, he doesn't know what he's doing out there yet, but my God, is he talented. The guy holds all the weight room records at Alabama. The guy power clean 375 pounds, can squat 560 something. What's the other thing? Deadlift almost 700 pounds. He is an offensive lineman in terms of his strength. He is a running back in terms of ability to run. And once he puts the mind together with what he can do with his arm, off the charts, what he might be able to do. So I don't accept the whole when they're missing your starting quarterback thing. Look at how many teams went out without their starting quarterbacks this past week. Some of the most impressive performances from this past week in college football were backup quarterbacks. Look at Mr. Bean, right? Speaking of Mr. Bean, not the Mr. Bean, of course, played by Rowan Atkinson, but the guy I called a best value version of Robert Griffin III, a guy who was a elite level hurdler who started his career at North Texas State, transfers to Kansas, loses the job to Jalen Daniels, but is forced into duty, and look what he does. So I don't accept that. You got to play with who you have. Every team's
correct
somebody by this point in the season.
But Bill, going back to Jimbo Fisher, one of the things I said earlier on the show, I said, I don't care if you're making $10 million a year. I don't care if you're making $10 an hour. Do your job. Jimbo Fisher is an offensive-minded coach, and you just hit the nail on the head. He can't seem to get the quarterback right. Why is that?
I think part of it is talent evaluation. And I spend a lot of time on talent evaluation, right? I spend time studying it. I talk to people who that's what they do. A lot of my close confidants are now directors of recruiting at college football programs. And I ask them a lot about how they do it. And we don't have time to get into how different teams are different and how they evaluate talent. But I'll say this much. We've seen how Jimbo Fisher has looked like a genius every time he has an elite level quarterback, right? And you give him an elite level quarterback, you give him a Jameis Winston. I mean, obviously it didn't happen for Jamarcus Russell in the NFL.
Right.
But you give him an elite level college quarterback, right? We're not talking about NFL. He's a college quarterback, and he looks like a genius again. You give him just a college quarterback, not elite, not super great, just a college quarterback, a guy who's playing quarterback in college, good enough to play, but not a guy that is going to make people go, and now he's not so much a genius. Now, he can fix that by just getting another quarterback. And there's a lot of good quarterbacks who are going to hit the market. So the one thing that might save him is that there are guys who are not going to win the job right in the same state with him. Hudson Card's pretty darn good. And Quinn Ewers isn't going anyplace. His savior may be just up the road a piece.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I know, I give Bill some questions, things we're going to talk about, but I have to bring this up. So Brent Venable was the defensive coordinator for Clemson under Dabo Swinney. They won national championships. He's the head coach of Oklahoma. Bill, in the Red River rivalry, you can lose to Texas, Bill. You cannot lose 49-0. Is it possible this guy could be fired after a year? What the hell's going on there? They have talent. It's
possible, but it'd be a mistake. I know people, this is an immediate gratification here. Everybody wants everything yesterday now. I get that. I understand that. Nobody wants to wait on anything. We want to microwave popcorn every part of our lives. I got that. However, if you fire a guy who hangs his hat on defense after his defense looks like that, I get that. But those aren't his guys. Do I need to point that out?
Yes. No, that's but Bill, you can lose to Texas. You cannot lose 49-0 on national TV.
I understand
it looks like your team has quit.
Well, once again, that's not really his team yet. I mean, we all know that he walked in there. I'm sure he walked in there and looked at some of those guys' tape and thought, oh man, oh boy. How much is my buyout again? Sure, I get it. Everybody gets it. Give him at least 2 years. What are we doing here?
Okay.
I mean, he hasn't had a single recruiting class yet. What are we doing here? He has a single whole recruiting class. His defense is a mishmash of transfers in, JUCO guys, and the guys he found when he walked in the door. Give him a chance to bring in at least 2 recruiting classes. I mean, have we gotten to the point? Go back and look in history at what Joe Paterno's first couple years were like at Penn State. Go back and look at history at what Frank Beamer's first couple years at Virginia Tech were like. I mean, Bobby Bowden when he first gets to Florida State, or even before that when he's at West Virginia. None of these guys would have had their Hall of Fame careers. We're firing guys after 1 year.
Mike Krzyzewski at Duke was horrible for 3 years.
Right. Bill Foster was, I remember saying, Bill Foster did better than this at first. So give a guy a chance. Are we firing guys after half a season? Is that where we are now, Monte? Is this what we become as a society?
No, I get it. I am extremely. No, it is. You said it's the microwave popcorn society. Okay, so Chip Kelly, his 5th year in UCLA. Okay, wins an impressive game against Utah. They beat Washington. He's 6-0. Now, I will say this. Okay, people don't remember how dominant Chip Kelly was at Oregon.
Yep.
He was 46-7. He was 33-4 in the Pac-12. He beat up on Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll went to the NFL because he couldn't stop Chip Kelly. He's in his 5th year at UCLA. Their stadium is 26 miles away from the college campus, which in LA takes about an hour and a half. And this guy, with his talk about developing players in DTR and Charbonnet and his transfer portal, Chip Kelly could win the Pac-12, and no one wants to hear it, Bill.
Well, remember once I just said about not firing guys too early? This doesn't happen if you fire Chip Kelly when that team's struggling. This doesn't happen if people are getting rid of Dalian Thompson-Robinson when he was struggling. Look at what happens when you let these two came in together 5 years ago, and we let it happen. And look what's happening. Patience, people. It pays off sometimes. So, yes, I did see this coming if they didn't fire him. He's always known how to – I mean, I've been watching him since he was back at University of New Hampshire when he had Ricky Santos. Ball. I've watched almost his entire career, right? Because I watch a lot of FCS football. I've watched him from the moment he first starts putting his stamp on football as we now know it. And he helped to change the way that college football is played. He's not by himself, but he's one of the guys that convinced even sort of the holdouts that, well, maybe this up-tempo spread – but he spreads you to run first, right? He still wants to run the football. That's what people mistake about Chip Kelly. He's not a
great point, Bill. People think it's like the run and shoot or just spread. He wants to run the ball, and they pushed around a good Utah couldn't stop him, and
that's a good defense. Don't sleep on that team. They're still going to win a lot of games.
Right.
It's his spread is a spread. Jacked up, sped up version of wing T, believe it or not. So it's the offense my dad played in the 1950s, completely changed. I mean, sort of, like I said, sped up and spread out. But the running principles are wing T run principles. And they do a lot of fun things in blocking schemes, which we don't have time to get into. But if you give him time, and this is true of anywhere, he would have worked in the NFL if they'd given him time also. Yeah. Now, so he got, quote unquote, figured out, but he would have figured out they're figuring it out if he hadn't gotten fired.
That's a great point.
Time is everything.
Okay, so we've talked about DTR, the quarterback for UCLA, giving the opportunity to develop. Okay, yeah. I used to watch Bo Nix at Auburn, and I'm like, this guy's trying to score a touchdown on every play. It's 3rd and 12. He's gonna turn the ball over. I'm just gonna say this right now, and people are gonna think I'm crazy. If Oregon wins the Pac-12, this guy may win the Heisman. He has played so smart, so under control. I think he has 20 touchdowns. Forget about the Georgia game where they weren't ready. Over the last 5 weeks, 20 touchdowns, I think 2 turnovers. Bo Nix is a totally different player.
Well, part of that is the boulder of pressure that was on his shoulders his whole time that he was out on the plains is now been lifted. It's not like he's anonymous out there in Oregon,
Eugene.
but it's not the crushing pressure. He was Patrick Nick's son, and he's the savior when he gets to Auburn. And he certainly played well at times, sometimes even extremely well. But it was just everyone's expectations was that he was essentially going to walk on water, right? They were going to roll the boulder away, and he was going to elevate this program into. I mean, he's going to take them to the national championship at least once, right? Maybe more than once. People have slightly more realistic expectations where he is now of what he is and who he is.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Who's calling you when you're on the Full Monty Sports Show? I don't understand what's happening.
I hope they would know better.
So for those people who don't know, Bo Nix his whole life has been about going to Auburn, beating Alabama, leading them. And he even said, it was too much pressure for me. He said that the community here, instead of, and after the first week, they were ripping him, and rightly so. But he said the community here has been so supportive, and there is pressure to win, but it's not coming from me. It's coming from all of us, where he had that pressure of being the greatest player to ever come out of Alabama when he was at Auburn.
Yeah. When you are asked to do something that's difficult, playing quarterback at a high level at a big-time program is extremely difficult with nothing else complicating the issue. When you add to it that everyone's saying, this is going to be our best player we've had in our program since Cam Newton. And some people are saying he could be better than Cam Newton, right? Now, when you're saying these kinds of things about a guy who's never played a single snap, and then he had some really solid early performances. I mean, look at that game, his first time he faces Alabama. Some of those early games, it just fed the fire. Oh, yeah. And he's just a baby, and look what he's doing already. And when you add to that, like I said, there's Auburn. All Auburn cares about, there's not a lot else going on there. That is a football school. They have a basketball program that's very solid, but it's a football school. And when the football team is doing what they hope it will do, that's everything there. They want to beat Alabama. They win national championships. That's all they think about there. And he looked great early on. And then some things happened and was mostly pressing, right? It was him trying to do too much.
Yeah, no, he's been a great fit. Dan Lanning you could go grab that phone, Bill, and, see what it is. Dan Lanning has definitely turned this program around, which brings us to our next point, Bill. And again, we're talking with Bill Carroll here, host of No Huddle Necessary on YouTube, the Nuts and Bolts Sports YouTube channel. Bill, the question I have to ask you is, and I said this when he got hired. I live in Florida here. I had everyone and their mother texting me that, Miami is back with Mario Cristobal. Cristobal has lost 6 of his last 8 games. He made Justin Herbert a game manager. Cristobal is a great recruiter, but he's a horrible game coach. Bill, anyone who knows college football saw this coming a mile away. Am I wrong?
Well, I'll say 2 things. There are programs where he'd be successful. There are situations where he'd be successful. The game is headed in this direction, and he's headed in that direction. But if he were at Wisconsin or even Michigan, he'd actually have success. The problem is Miami isn't built the way, and of course the ACC as a whole isn't built the way he wants to play football.
Right.
He is swimming this way, and the tide is taking him that way. He wants to play power, smash mouth on offense, and sort of contain and get pressure on defense, but contain mostly on defense. And this is just a different world he's playing in. Now, it doesn't mean it can't work. We've seen people counter program and have it work out. Michigan's an excellent example, right? They're counter programming.
Wisconsin's a great example.
Yeah, well, not as much this year, but yeah.
But they have a trio of running backs. They want to run the ball 30 times a game. Cristobal, I say this, he's coaching like it's 1975. He'd be great at Army where they run the wishbone because he wants to run the ball 50 times a game.
He would prefer. He's an old offensive lineman and a pretty darn good one, right? There's places where he'd work. There are places where he'd work. I mean, even at Arkansas, I think he'd have a certain amount of success. The problem is Miami is a glitz and glamour kind of program. The guys who come there and want to play there want to play, you know, throw the ball, or they want to play a certain way. He wants to play a way that's different from the way they want to play.
Yeah.
And Tyler Van Dyke is a guy that, you know, some people had in their top 5 NFL quarterback prospects. I didn't have him quite that high, but there's components to work with that certainly say, oh, this guy could be something. But in the current offense that he's in the way that they want to play, there's a mismatch there. And I wouldn't be shocked if he decides to move on. And maybe they find someone who's less talented but a better fit. Once again, there's a lot of quarterback movement nowadays in college football.
That is true. Okay, so my next question is, you know, Kansas and their head coach, Leopold, off to a good start. They lost to a very good TCU team. Yes. I still think Kansas is a top 20 team. Sure. Talk about Lance Leopold. And another coach I wanted to get into is Kansas State coach Chris Kleinman, who is 69-6 at North Dakota State. These two coaches have really come in, and Chris Kleinman may not leave because he went from North Dakota to Kansas State, which is, you know, an upgrade financially, an upgrade nationally with recognition. But talk about the Kansas coach. Do you think he's the next big coach who may get another job?
Actually, I think Kleinman is more likely to leave than Leopold, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah. But we'll get to that in a moment. So both those programs are programs that when you're doing it there, you're doing it differently because they're basically what they call 2.5-star program. You're building mostly around 2- and 3-star recruits. And
Bill, let me just explain to some people who don't know what that means. For a team like an Oregon, an Alabama, they're getting the best recruits in the country. So these guys come in and they're the highest ranked recruiting classes every year. They can play right away. What Bill is talking about here now at Kansas State and Kansas, you get guys who aren't heavily recruited and they need 1 or 2 years to develop, get physically stronger, have great coaching. So these two coaches are really all about player development, and you see them shine in week 2, 3, and 4. That's what Bill's talking about when he talks about these recruits and their 2 stars.
And you're working the junior colleges, right?
Yes.
So Kansas has great junior in that Jayhawk conference is what they call it in junior college. You know, they've got terrific junior college football. And so you're going to Hutchinson, you're going to these Fort Scott and these other junior colleges, as well as obviously stretching outwards towards the 3rd and 4th best recruits coming out of states like Texas and Oklahoma. And so those other plain states around you. But you're building your program around, as you said, guys are going to redshirt, you know, hit the weights, learn the program. And so as a redshirt sophomore, people are like, oh, where'd this guy come from? Like Jalen Daniels, where'd this guy come from? He was a terrific guy, got lost in the sauce in LA behind guys like DJ Ungulele, behind guys like Bryce Young and Dorian Thompson-Robinson even.
Yeah.
But so he's lost in the, well, he was obviously in Nevada, but lost in the sauce in California with all these big time college recruits at 4- and 5-star guys. And so people slept on him because he was shorter, but he was super, super good. I mean, throughout his high school career, but he just got overlooked. He ends up going the junior college route and wins the battle with a very talented guy I mentioned earlier, Jason Bean, who I like both of those quarterbacks. Development is everything at those kinds of programs. If you're going to win at Virginia Tech, if you're going to win at those programs, you're going to win at some of the programs where you don't get, I mean, Duke even. You have to develop those players. You want to win there. Wake Forest is an excellent example of player development. They redshirt a lot of guys. They bring a lot of guys along slowly, and then boom, you know, they go undefeated for long stretches of time. So you have to be patient at every program, I think. I think everyone's too quick, period. But especially at a program like this. And I think Kleinman has built enough success that he's going to have a lot of jobs to turn down. He may turn all of them down, but I don't think he'll turn all of them down. I think somebody will turn his head. I think he's more likely to take the Nebraska job even than Leopold, though everyone's sort of already sort of penciling Leopold in. I just have a feeling he's going to wait for an even better situation than that one.
Well, that brings up my next point. We talked about Bo Nix looking like a brand new player. Listen, we've talked about this kid when he was at Nebraska. I'm talking about Adrian Martinez. He looks like a brand new quarterback at Kansas State. Under Nebraska, he never got better. Same old turnovers. And now he goes to a new situation, and they're playing well. They're 5-1 now, Kansas State. So What has been the difference? Is it simply because Scott Frost, as I put this funny picture up here, really didn't care? For those of you who don't know, Scott Frost, the head coach of Nebraska, he was being reported by the golf team because he was using the golf simulator with his buddies instead of being out in practice, and they were playing drinking games. Scott Frost went back to Nebraska, and he basically thought he was a student there, partying every night. Who would let's just talk about Martinez first, and then we'll talk about why would I go to Nebraska, Bill, unless I'm going to, because they're not going to out recruit Texas. They're
Nope.
not out recruiting USC.
Nope.
Why is Nebraska, who was dominant in the 80s with all those national championships, why would anyone want that Nebraska job?
Yeah, and they were great in the 90s, even into the very early part of the 2000s. And, the old joke about the signs that say, Bo Pelini missed me yet.
Yeah.
So,
because he won 9-10 games every year.
right. They used to be a solid 9-10, win team every year, but they didn't like that. They wanted to be a national championship contender. And of course, people don't realize how hard it is to win at Nebraska because there was so much winning at Nebraska for so long. Bob Devaney, they had a long stretch where they were terrific. But two things radically changed. One of those things is NIL. Let's be very, very clear and very, very honest about this. Not that there's no NIL opportunities in a place like Lincoln, Nebraska, but compare them to the opportunities at a place like Texas, Texas A&M, USC, UCLA,
even here in Miami. Yeah.
Even Miami, correct. So that's one thing that really works against them. Two, everybody gets to be on television nowadays. There was a time when you never would see Kansas on television playing football, at least, right? There were some very good programs wouldn't be on television, right? Boise State, when I was growing up, was never on television, ever on television.
I remember the first time I saw their blue carpet.
Yes,
I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
I was like, I got up to adjust my TV, like most of us did the first time we saw them. Back in, I think it was when Dan Hawkins was still there, and I got up, was like, what the heck? So you have to understand that now kids see other programs. Even kids who live in Nebraska now see other programs, and they see Oregon. They see, so if you're a kid who maybe your mom and dad went to Nebraska and you're a pretty good football player and you're in Nebraska or Kansas or even in that area, NDSU is getting some of those kids that you see in Nebraska. Yeah. I'm just telling you the truth. They're getting some 3 and 4 stars now occasionally at NDSU. Yeah. Boise State's getting some of those young men right on that Smurf turf, as they call it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So BYU is getting some of those kids. Some of those kids that would have gone to Nebraska in the old days. And then the last part of it is because they don't know who they are. They think they're that Nebraska, right? They're living in the past. And so their expectations are not realistic. They still want to be winning national championships. Well, let's start with, winning 8 games. Let's start some, the old thing about smart, right? Smart goals. Let's start some of those, significant, measurable, achievable.
Well, Bill, you're describing Nebraska, and I could say the same thing about the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, right? They haven't won a title in decades. People, first of all, it's an impossible school to get into academic-wise. You could get into Texas, you could get into Miami, a lot easier. People want to play when they have, Deion Sanders, who I don't agree with all of his shenanigans, says, put the name on the players' backs. He's like, what are we doing, not having players' names? He's like, let these people's parents get some recognition. But who wants to go to an academic school where it's cold all the time? And forget about the big thing was they're on NBC every week. If you're good, you're going to be on TV, so it doesn't matter. So the same people who talk about Nebraska's glory days are the same people who unrealistically think Notre Dame should compete for a national championship every year. It's not going to happen.
Well, the big difference is Nebraska still is a really good national recruiter. They're still getting 4 and 5 stars on a regular basis. So they're having a changeover because Marcus Freeman has a slightly different approach to recruiting. But it's going to be ugly for a year or two. Once again, stop firing people halfway through seasons, people. Give him at least 3 years, and I promise you he will win. It may not be the way you were used to winning. It might be a little less exciting, but they're going to win. They're going to have a really good defense. It's going to look like Minnesota, right? If you're okay with that. The way Minnesota won when they were really good a couple of years ago, it'll be more like that. They'll run the ball well. They'll play really good defense. They'll get enough big plays in the passing game to score points, but they're not going to be out there throwing the ball all over the place because defensive-minded coaches want to rest their defense.
Yeah. And that's the problem I have with defensive-minded coaches in the NFL because they're always worried about. I don't want to put my defense in a bad position.
Yep.
So on 3rd and 12, they're going to run a draw
Yep.
because it's that conservative mindset.
Right.
Okay, so I look at the Oregon Ducks, even with Lanning, and I'm realistic. I say win 9 or 10 games.
Yep.
Every couple of years, be like a Wisconsin, right? Maybe you get to the Final Four. And to
Yep.
me, that's a success. So why is Nebraska and Notre Dame, who haven't won in decades, still have that mindset that, like, you know what? We have to compete for a national championship. It's unrealistic. If Brian Kelly couldn't win a national championship at Notre Dame, I don't see any other coach because Brian Kelly, say what you want. When that guy brings his guys in, he's a damn good coach.
Sure, but how many movies have they made about the Oregon Ducks football program? I'm not trying to be mean.
Animal House. Animal House was on the campus of Oregon. That's the only movie.
Right. So there hasn't been a win one for the Gipper moment, at least on film yet, about the Oregon Ducks. Nebraska is the greatest example of the whole people being drunk on prestige, being drunk on nostalgia. Even more so than some of the programs we've talked about. It's bad at Nebraska, but it's even worse at Notre Dame. Now, luckily, they're still able to recruit well. They're in a better situation. NIL, they're in a much better situation because so many of their graduates are big-time powerhouse business owners in the tri-state area around Notre Dame. There's loads of opportunity. The thing that has to happen is they have to be patient. They can still challenge to win national championships, but not every year. They can do it every 4 or 5 years.
Right.
If they can make that adjustment, which I don't know if they can, but if they can make that adjustment, realizing that we can compete for national championships every 4 or 5 years, as opposed to every year or every other year, they'll be fine because they'll be able to do that because he'll be able to get those kids that would have gone to Stanford, right? Those kids that were thinking about Wake Forest. And someone says, well, how about Notre Dame? Stanford's still going to be there, but Notre Dame is still a little bit of magic is left in the name, even with younger players. Not to the extent it was 20 or 30 years ago,
right?
But there's a little bit of magic left in the name. All that magic has skeeted right out of the name of Nebraska, unfortunately. And I don't know if you can put that toothpaste back in the tube.
Great point about making moves. By the way, to this day, Rudy is one of my most hated sports movies of all time. They're rewarding a scrub who would never play. And Joe Montana said that is not how it happened at all. But people who think of Notre Dame think that Rudy it happened word for word. But yeah, so let's move now to some other things in the Pac-12. Who do you think wins this conference? I think my Oregon Ducks have a good chance. Yeah. UCLA travels to Eugene in 2 weeks to play them, or do you think it's Lincoln Riley's for the next 7 years?
Well, I don't think it's Lincoln Riley for the next 7 years. Okay. I mean, first of all, Washington State is going to beat some people that people don't think they're going to beat this year and next year and the year after that and the year after that. That is a sneaky good program. And once again, built around sort of 3, occasional 4 stars. I guess it's called a 3.5-star program, but still, they're not getting 5 stars. They're getting 3 stars mostly, the occasional 4-star dashed in for flavor. But what they do schematically on offense and defense will give them a chance to give people a lot of trouble. Utah is still going to be trouble. But I think the UCLA-USC game is going to be the most exciting it's been in a very long time.
Yeah.
Because it's going to decide at least half of who's going to win the Pac-12 in my mind. And then in the North, I mean, it seems like it's probably Oregon's to lose. Washington is better than they've been in the past, sort of their version of Bo Nix, right? A guy that transferred in, sort of had a lot of expectations where he was before it, comes away, so there's fewer expectations, and now it's really looking good, and Michael Penix Jr. But I think that, it's Oregon's to lose in the North, and then I think it's USC, UCLA decide the South.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I give Dan Lanning, after that embarrassing loss, 49. I mean, they got embarrassed by Georgia. But you look at what they've done. They beat Washington State on the road. They beat BYU, right? They beat Arizona. So these are teams that Oregon played that normally you would think they're going to get pushed around. They're not going to be able to win on the road, especially with a young, not a young team, but a young mindset. But after that loss to Georgia, where they all admitted we were not ready, coaching staff down, they're the best team in the country. this team, after beating BYU, after beating Washington State,
Yep.
they've really have some momentum here, and it's going to be a great game in 2 weeks. UCLA, Chip Kelly going back home with a legitimate chance to win the
Yeah.
Pac-12, and I'm
Correct.
sure Oregon fans are going to treat him. Listen, I didn't want him to leave. I hoped that he stayed one more year with Mariota because I thought they would definitely win the national championship. But he left, had a decent career in the NFL. People don't realize they made the playoffs the first year,
Yep.
and I think Nick Foles had 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions as
27
the
to 2.
starter under Chip Kelly.
It's still the best touchdown interception ratio in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. In history. So, yes. And then people say, quote unquote, they caught up with him. But, I mean, Michael Vick also had a really good season with Chip Kelly.
Yeah.
He's certainly, and I think that if he and Mariota had spent a longer time together, I think they would have eventually even clicked there if they built up the talent on that roster. That was not a good roster. That was a bad roster. But he's a guy that if you give him the right components and a certain amount of time, he'll win. And he's proven it over and over and over and over again. And so that's why I tell people, just don't go willy-nilly firing coaches after,
No, listen, when I watched that game yesterday, I mean, I'm watching that game and I'm like, wow, he's got 3 legitimate studs. Charbonnet is a very good running back. DTR, and I remember watching him making horrible mistakes in the red zone. 3rd and 17, again, trying to make the big play. Yesterday, I see him yelling at his offensive linemen in the red zone where they committed a penalty. He threw the ball away on several occasions. Bobo, the wide receiver, Chip Kelly has been left alone because it's not USC. And honestly, I don't know how anyone can recruit there. When I was a college basketball coach, I worked the Seton Hall camp, and Chris Collins, who's now the head coach of Northwestern, he came in at 2 a.m. drunk and saying that he just got the call to go work for Mike Krzyzewski. He came into my room. He was friends with the guy who I was rooming with. And I remember he said, the only thing we're selling, we don't have a football team. East Orange, New Jersey is like South Central LA. The campus around it is a crime-filled area. He goes, they had a stadium that held about 3,000 fans. The only thing that he goes, we're selling playing for Tommy Amaker, and we'll get you to the NBA. He goes, this was right after they went to the Sweet 16, Seton Hall. And he said with D'Alembert, and he was just like, I don't know how we're doing it. I don't know how Chip Kelly, again, is doing such a great job when they don't have a stadium on campus that people go to. They got to travel an hour and a half away. He doesn't have he's developed these players, but Chip Kelly should win College Coach of the Year. And do you think that Chip Kelly will want to leave somewhere where they actually have a fan base that supports his college?
Well, first of all, for him to win College Coach of the Year, all the wheels have to come off at Kansas. I think that Lance Leipold, it's his reward to lose. If they end up losing 1 or 2 more games and go 9-3 or 10-2, there's nobody taking it from Lance Leipold again.
Yeah.
But Chip Kelly certainly deserves to be in the team photo, right, for the Coaches of the Year. Would he leave? I mean, of course this is college football. Guys leave all the time. It would have to be the right situation, though. Would he leave? Sure. I think that if he got the call from the perfect situation, but he's in a pretty good situation, despite what you're saying. Yes, it is. I mean, I know it. I mean, your past plays like Flint Ridge and all that. I mean, it's a nice drive. Yes.
Not just that. All the pressure's on USC. There's no pressure for
all
Chip
the pressure
Kelly.
on USC. Yeah.
So
it's a good. Yeah.
It's a good. Okay, let's move to this. Who's better? Who wins this conference? Is it going to be Michigan again, who finally got off the hump? And I got to say, Jim Harbaugh's a totally different person now that he finally beat Ohio State. He seems like he's having more fun. He's still got that scowl and the intensity, but I still think Ohio State is a team to beat here. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. About everything I said about Bo Nix was the same about Harbaugh when he went back to Michigan. The savior has arrived. We're slaying the fatted calf. Bring your sick, your halt, and your lame to be healed, right? All that stuff. People are expecting the man to turn water into wine.
Right.
And now, the pressure is off a little bit. He still is expected to, especially to beat the team down south, but to win the conference title virtually every year. We all have Michigan fans in our circles. At least, I mean, I'm in Illinois, and there's loads of people who went to Michigan. Even if they're from here, went to Michigan for school. There's entire bars that are Michigan's bars, right?
In every state, New York, New Jersey, it doesn't matter where you are.
Yep. So the pressure is still there, but it's not like it was. It's not, we're all going to go nuts every year like it was. I mean, it was crazy. Those people were, once again, winning 9 and 10 games like they almost always do at Michigan, but it never satisfied them unless they win the game. Winning the game buys you at least another year or two of goodwill, and then you got to win it again, obviously. But if for some reason Ohio State wins the Big Ten, they won't go nuts, but he'll have 1 or 2 more years before he needs to win it again, and then the pressure will ratchet up if he doesn't.
Okay, so do you still think Ohio State is a better team?
Oh yeah, they are. Okay. Mostly because of what they can do in terms of creating big plays. Michigan is a really good football team. Offensive and defensive lines are very close, but their running back Blake Corum is special. But their situation in terms of the ability to get big plays in the passing game is not similar. And I like Ronnie Bell just fine, but Ronnie Bell would be like a wide receiver 4 at Ohio State, right? I mean, they have nobody who would crack the first 2 or 3 receivers. I mean, people are talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba as a possible candidate for the Blitnikoff Award, and he's not the best wide receiver on his team.
Yeah.
So,
it's
just not the same.
Yeah, that is okay. So, Bill, we got about a minute left here. Who is your final 4?
My final 4 as of this very, very moment, and obviously, I think they'll obviously change, but I still have Alabama and Georgia, I think still make it through. I think Ohio State makes it through. And my 4th, and this may raise some eyebrows, but I think it's Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State is a very complete football team. I think they have a very underrated defense. I think they can create big plays on offense. They have a quarterback that no one's talking about that I think has a shot to at least be a Heisman finalist in Spencer Sanders. He is a tremendous athlete with a strong arm who's accurate most of the time. He had sort of a down game this last game, accuracy-wise, but he's dangerous. And they can create big plays on both offense and defense. That's a team to watch out for.
Okay, I'm not going to disagree with anything you're saying, but if a Pac-12 team goes undefeated, how do you keep one of them out? And
if they go undefeated, you can't. I just feel like each one's gonna pick up a loss somewhere. And I might be wrong. I'm a USC fan, so I hope I'm wrong. But when I analyze that team, USC is getting away with it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you watch a team and you're watching them, and you're thinking, okay, they got away with it. But something in you says like this can't go on forever. My father used to say, if you run in the rain long enough, eventually you get wet. You only dodge raindrops for so long.
But and my final question is, can you trust a guy with a mullet to win a big game? I mean, mullets are people too. I'm not discriminating, but he's straight out of achy breaky heart video right here.
Sure. Yeah. I've got my own issues with Mike Gundy, who I've once again watched since he was a high school prospect. He and his brother Cale at Midwest High School in Oklahoma City area. I've watched his entire career from high school forward. And here's what I will tell you. He, once again, another program that's built mostly around 3 stars. They got 4 stars there too, but 5 stars are very rare at that school in the state. They mostly are 3 and 3.5, right? 3.5 star program, 3 and 4 stars. But say what you want about him, and I've said some things about him. He knows how to coach.
No, he does. He does.
He's a good football coach.
Chuba Hubbard had his star running back had a huge issue with him when he was, spewing some QAnon conspiracy theories. Mike Gundy's, part of what I like to call the good old boys. I'm sure behind closed doors, he says some things that I would not agree with. But when you're competing year in and year out with Oklahoma, who gets a ton of talent, and you're competing with Texas, you can flat out coach and you could develop players.
Yep. And I just think that they're the most complete team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
So if they go undefeated, and as you said, one of the Pac-12 teams goes undefeated, it's going to be ugly things going to happen in that room. But I think that Big 12 still fairly or unfairly, I think they have a little more respect. Whether they
do, and a lot of that has to do with Texas and Mac Brown, and also Stoops when he was at Oklahoma. So they still have more clout than the
Yep.
Pac-12. All right, Bill, how can we follow and support you? Love having you on. Thank you so much.
Sure. So every Friday, I have the great pleasure of putting in the can to go live every Saturday morning, the college football forecast, with my co-host, the baby-faced assassin, Brock Vieira. Also, I am the host, obviously, of No Huddle Necessary, which comes on every Wednesday night at 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, 6:30 Mountain, and 5:30 Pacific. And you can find me occasionally on the Full Monty Show. And then, and come February, my other co-host, the one, the only, Mr. Jeff Barnes, and I will get rolling again with our Draft Central, which will talk all about these pro prospects that are coming out of college. So that's where you can find me. And at 11 Bravo, so that's the word 11, at 11 Bravo 138 on Twitter.
Bill, great job. Fans love you. Always like having you on every couple weeks during the fall and the winter to talk college football. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
Great job. Great job by Bill. When we come back, George Lopez had some internet problems, but he'll be right back. He'll be joining us. He just logged on. You're watching the Full Monty Sports Show live on YouTube. It is 20-20 Packers versus the Giants.
In 2006, we founded Yeti Coolers with a simple mission: build a cooler we use every day if it existed. One that was built for the serious outdoor enthusiasts rather than for mass discount retailers. One that could take the abuse we knew we'd put it through, out in the field and on the water. One that simply wouldn't break. We decided early on that production innovation would come from necessity and first-hand experience, not from market research and data analysis. Today, Yeti products perform when it matters most. Whether that be an excursion into the remote Alaskan wilderness, chasing redfish on the Gold Coast, or just getting together with friends in the backyard, we make gear that helps you stay out longer, travel farther, and live harder. # built for the wild.
Hey football fans, we have a great offer for you from one of our newest partners, FanDuel Sportsbook. Sign up now for a new FanDuel account by using our special link located in the description, and you will get a no-sweat bet up to $1,000. That means that you can bet up to $1,000 on your first wager risk-free. FanDuel will give you the amount you wagered back in free bets if you lose. So go ahead and bet on your favorite team this Sunday, and even if they lose, you are taken care of. To claim this special offer, just click the link in the description and create a new account. Then, make your first bet on whatever you like. That's it. Win some money at FanDuel today.
All right, let's bring on George Lopez joining us from LA. George, how are you this morning?
Hey, Monte, good morning. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing very good, thanks. You got to be loving life right now because your boy Lincoln Riley has really turned USC around. I do not think they're the best team in the Pac-12, but I'm sure you're going to try to convince me differently. What do you like about Lincoln Riley and USC so far, and what is your biggest concern?
Well, so far, obviously, I think you have to like the offense. Caleb Williams is having a tremendous year. But what I really liked is what he did yesterday, because Williams didn't have the greatest game last night against Washington State. And what did Lincoln Riley do? Because everyone calls him, as you've done it before, the quarterback whisperer.
Yeah.
He turned to the running game. They ran the ball 40 times last night for 181 yards. Jermaine Dye had a tremendous game. So he was able to get away from the passing attack. I mean, Williams only threw, I believe it was 29 passes last night, if I'm not mistaken. So Riley was seeing, okay, he doesn't have it the way we normally expect it. Let's get that running game going, and the offensive line did a tremendous job. So the players that he got from the transfer portal basically came from the offensive side. You know, Brendan Rice, Jermaine Dye, Addison Russell, Mario Williams, obviously Caleb Williams. So he's got the pieces on the offensive side. My concern is he's gonna have to address the defense. Though the defense did a tremendous job last night in the second half. They shut down Washington State. They held them scoreless on 7 drives in the second half. So their defense has gotten better under Coach Alex Grinch. But I do think the defense is going to have to be a little bit better because they have some huge games coming up.
Yeah, I mean, George, one of the things I will say is obviously, USC being undefeated, UCLA's undefeated. UCLA goes up to Oregon in 2 weeks to take on the Oregon Ducks. But it's just ironic because, like, you got to take our throwaways to be stars on your team. Travis Dye was with Oregon, 28 rushes, 149 yards. So, you're taking away our leftovers. What's one man's garbage is another man's treasure. But George, I
You want
told
to
you
go
about
there?
this guy. This guy's
Yeah.
undersized. He doesn't have he's not like someone who's gonna. He just makes defenses miss. He reads holes perfectly. George, I love this kid.
Oh yeah, and you being a coach, you know this perfectly. The one thing you cannot measure is a person's heart when you get
Yeah,
them on that
yeah.
field.
Yep.
That's the one thing you can't measure. And you want to call him a throwaway? He just wised up. What am I doing up here in Oregon when I could be going to Los Angeles with Lincoln Riley, a well-known program? It's going to get my draft status even higher. I'll go to a winner. Someone
Yeah.
who's got a tradition of winning championships instead of looking at a trophy case with a lot of cobwebs.
Okay, George, I mean, I bring fish. You bring a gun to a fist fight. Can you not go back for 50 years of Oregon's failures? But no, George, talk about Travis Dye's performance last night. I told you when they got him, I'm like, you're going to love this kid.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, again, what was it? 28 carries, 149 yards. And that's what happened in Oregon. They would use him like a workhorse. He's not built to run the ball that much, but he never gets tired.
No, he's very well conditioned, and he's part of a three-headed attack with USC. Even though right now he's getting the bulk of the carries,
Which he
you have
should.
the
He should.
and I agree. And I was the first game I went to on the season opener, and I was watching. I was expecting him to get about 20 carries that game, and he didn't. And they were going a lot with Malik Brown, the true freshman out of Mater Dei out here in Southern California. I was like, okay, he's spreading it out, and little by little, you're seeing Dye starting to get the bulk of the carries, which I think is the right thing to do with this offense. And then you bring in someone like Malik Brown as a change of pace. So that offense is starting to click with that running game. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's important. Then they're going to need that balance going forward.
Believe it or not, other than Marcus Mariota, Travis Dye was my favorite player. I love this kid. When he left, I said that's a huge loss, especially now when you're seeing how good Oregon has become over the last 4 or 5 weeks. All right, let's talk about my boy. We're in a chat room. You and the Cuban Lion and Ray, you guys don't want to give this guy credit. He is 6-0. He has developed his players. DTR, the quarterback, Charbonnet, the running back. They pushed around a good Utah team. Chip Kelly is doing wonders there. And I got to be honest with you, I'm Chip Kelly. I get the hell out of Dodge because they play in the worst a stadium in college football. Are you impressed? Are you worried about UCLA?
It's hard for me to say anything positive about UCLA, but I'm gonna be honest here. You have to be impressed with Chip Kelly's doing. I know over here they call his quarterback, DTR.
Yeah.
They use that. Why he's not being talked up in regards to Heisman Trophy
Heisman, yeah,
is a joke. That kid is having a hell of a year. And honestly, as an SC fan, hell yeah, I'm concerned. I mean, he put up 62 points against USC last year.
yeah.
That's going to be a hell of a matchup, and I'm actually honestly looking forward to that game in a couple weeks against Oregon.
Yeah,
I did not expect them at all to handle Utah the way they did last night.
I watched the game from start to finish. Just a dominant performance. Their defense, like USC's, can give up points at times, but this offense is clicking on all cylinders. DTR has really, and you may not have seen this at USC if you went there, because the first 2 years, turnovers, horrible mistake. The USC press would have killed him, but it's UCLA. He learned, he grew. Chip Kelly said, we're going to be patient. We're not going to do this right away. Let's be honest. When he went to UCLA, there were like Division II players there. The cupboard was empty. Now through the transfer portal to these two guys who I think UCLA right now is the best team in the Pac-12.
Yeah. Well, last night I was listening to Pac-12 radio, and they were talking about the game, and they brought up when he first got to UCLA out of Bishop Gorman High School that he was pretty much just using his athleticism. And he did look a little lost. And I swear, it seems like he's been there for 10 years.
Yeah, he's been there 5. Yeah.
It's insane. But like you said, he's matured in this offense. Chip Kelly, he's brought him up. He's brought him along the right way. and you're just seeing a polished player in that system. And like I said, it kills me to pay a compliment to UCLA, and not so much Chip Kelly. I mean, I think he is a tremendous coach, and he's finally got the
George,
players
if
he
you're
likes.
him, would you leave? Like they're going to, unless they collapse, they're still going to win 9, 10, 11 games. They're going to go to a legitimate bowl game. That fan base does not support their football team because the stadium's an hour and a half away. Do you think Chip Kelly should leave, and do you think he will?
Well, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. He's got a good job. He's got a good thing. It is a good program. I mean, yeah, they do fall under the shadow of USC when you talk Los Angeles college football, but they do have a tradition. They are a good program.
Yeah,
And
but
you have to
George,
under-
I lived out in LA, and they will spend 3 hours talking about USC.
oh, granted.
Whether they're
I
good or
mean,
bad, they'll spend 30 minutes talking about UCLA.
yeah, they're almost, and Andrea's going to love this one. They're almost like the Clippers of college football when it comes to LA.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
They can have a good year, but well, what's USC doing? It's just USC is the name in Los Angeles. Really, but you got to ask yourself, what jobs are out there that would be enticing?
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean,
Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to fire the coach from Oklahoma as bad as they are right now.
They
But
won't.
what job is out there? He's already built the program. He's got it going in the right direction. I don't really see him leaving because I don't see a job out there that's worth looking at. And Troy Aikman kind of brought this up. Maybe it's time for UCLA to build a stadium on campus.
I lived right like a mile from there. Okay, there's no room. Where are they going to build it? There's no room on that campus.
Yeah, see, I've never been on campus because I avoid that. That's just traffic's just crazy from where I live to get to Westwood. It's insane.
Yeah.
So I try to avoid that at all costs. But I agree. Aikman said, well, let's build a 30,000 seat stadium on campus, because to go from Westwood to Pasadena for games, and a bulk of the fans are closer to the Rose Bowl, I would imagine.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the attendance was last night.
Listen,
I just heard Kirk Herbstreit was talking a lot of trash about it. There's plenty of seats available.
There were plenty of seats, but they did pack it for the first time. But I will say this: even USC needs a new stadium, George.
Oh no. USC can never leave the Coliseum. That's tradition. And the Coliseum with the renovations, they got it down from a 90,000 seats capacity. Now it's down to 70. And the first game we went to, it was over 100 degrees, so people weren't going. It was just too damn hot. But they will get 65,000 to 70,000 consistently, especially if they're winning. On USC, I can't.
So
see
you're
USC
saying don't upgrade?
No. Well, they've done the renovations already. There's really not much more you could do with the Coliseum. You got to keep the outer structure. You got to keep that. They've already upgraded the field, the inside. They put in suites. I wouldn't really do anything else to it other than get rid of United Airlines name, keep it as LA Memorial Coliseum. But they did a naming rights deal, and I understand the business side of it. I just personally don't like it.
All right, George, let's move to Major League Baseball. Get your Dodger logo up here. You're very upset with Major League Baseball, and here's why. The Dodgers won 111 games, by far the best team in the National League, and now they do not reseed after the first round of the playoffs. The Dodgers should be playing the Phillies right now, but they're not. The Braves are going to play the Phillies, and the Dodgers will play the winner of the Padres versus the Mets. And I know this doesn't sit well with you.
Well, I'm not so much mad. I'm just really like, I think every other sport reseeds.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. So I find that interesting. You get the best record in baseball, that you should be rewarded.
An easier path to the finals.
An easier path. I agree, but to be the man, you got to beat the man. So they're going to have to face these teams eventually. Because I don't know how you feel about the game today. If I'm a Mets fan, I'm a little concerned about Bassett throwing today.
George, there's so many concerns that I have.
Oh yeah, I know. We gone back and forth.
Let me get your take on this. So first of all, you have Francisco Alvarez, who is the number one prospect in all of baseball. The guy's a hitting machine, and you're not playing him. He's on the roster. You're playing Darren Ruff. You're playing Vogelback, who are not contributing at all. Like, let the kid bat ninth. Nitto yesterday. So last night, Ruff gets hit by a pitch. He's on first base. They pinch hit. They have a guy named Gore who's won 3 World Series. George, in the last 3 years, he has 1 hit. Reason why? He plays in the minors, and then at the end of the season, these teams call him up because he's super fast. So all he does is steal bases in the postseason. I think he was like 10 for 11. So the first pitch, Nitto is up, who's batting 230 with Gore on first base, and he swings and hits into a double play. First of all, Buck Showalter, you got to tell Nitto, you are not swinging for the first 2 or 3 pitches. You're taking. And they hit into a double play. You lose your runner. Buck Showalter brings in Diaz in the 7th inning last night. It's insane how Buck doesn't rely on young players, where the Dodgers always do, the Braves always do, the Astros always do. His mindset is a lot like Pat Riley when he first got to the Miami Heat. I'm going to play Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway Jr. 40 minutes a night, and in the first and second round, we have no second gear. The Mets look exhausted. They have no second gear. They're not going to beat the Dodgers if they win this. But, George, who do you want to face, the Dodgers or the Mets? I mean, the Padres or the Mets?
Honestly, I don't care because I know a lot of Dodger fans. Even my son Ramon is a Dodger fan. Oh, I want the Padres because he saw we went 14-5 against them. You throw all that crap from the regular season out the window once you come into the playoffs.
Yeah, but George, there is a mindset of the younger brother, bigger brother. There is not that with the Mets. The Dodgers own the Padres.
Yeah, but and I always go back to this 1988. The Mets beat the Dodgers 10 out of 11 times in the regular season. And looking at that series, the Dodgers should have beat the Mets in 5 games. There was that game 1. If John Shelby catches that ball in center field, it's right at his waist. Dodgers win game 1. Game 2, they win. They would have lost. They lost game 3 and then win game 4 and 5. They should have beat the Mets in 5. As much as the Mets dominated them that whole year, the Dodgers were the better team in the playoffs. Now,
well, they also got out coached because Davey Johnson had no idea what he was doing against Tommy Lasorda.
He did.
Yeah.
And right now, I would not. I really don't know. I don't care who they play. It's going to be a tough series, regardless if it's the Padres or the Mets.
I will say this. Again, you got to bring a gun to a fist fight, bringing up the 88 Dodgers. Yeah. And I will say this. One of the worst injustices in the history of baseball was Darryl Strawberry in 1988 had 39 home runs, 100 RBIs, and they gave the MVP to this guy who was like, 26 and 88 and was hurt majority of the time. The greatest injustice in MVP voting ever.
Okay, now, most valuable player to the team. The Mets were expected to win that year. The Dodgers were coming off back-to-back seasons where I believe they were 79 and 83, if I'm not mistaken, back-to-back. They bring in Gibson. No one expected them to win the division.
Didn't Gibson start like a fight because someone didn't run something out in like spring training?
No, what happened is Jesse Orosco
was like, that's what we need.
Well, Jesse Orosco actually put eye black in his hat as a joke.
Okay.
And that's what pissed off Gibson.
Okay.
And he came, I don't joke like that. I'm here to play. He brought a football mentality to the Dodgers. He brought what they needed to win that year. That's why he got the MVP. Granted, Darryl Strawberry had a tremendous season with the Mets. Any other time, yeah, he should have got MVP. But what Gibson did is why he got MVP.
Worst injustice, in my opinion, in the history of MVP voting. Okay, let's talk about this. I am so happy that Seattle won. When Seattle early on in the season took 2 out of 3 from the Mets, and I said to my dad, why does this team suck? They're so talented. I don't want to see the cheating Houston Astros get to the World Series. George, who are your World Series finals? Are you going Houston Dodgers?
I would like to see that just so the Dodgers can stick it to them and beat them straight up. But cheating scandal aside, you got to give credit to the Astros. Dusty Baker is doing a hell of a job with that team.
But Dusty Baker, he has a lot of Buck Showalter in him.
Yeah,
he's great.
He does.
He's Marty Schottenheimer, like I said in a text yesterday, who used to coach Kansas City and the Cleveland Browns. They're going to get you wins. Buck Showalter, to me, is not a playoff manager.
No.
I don't think Dusty Baker is either.
No, Buck Showalter, like I said, he reminds me a lot of Gene Mock. But Buck Showalter, who get the team better for the next coach to come. Look what he did with the Yankees. He got him up there. They brought in Joe Torre. Joe Torre took him the rest of the way. Same with Arizona. He did the same thing. He even had Baltimore winning, but he couldn't get him over the hump. And that's what it is. Whoever the next guy is going to be in a couple of years, he'll have the pieces hopefully in place because, you got issues. What is DeGrom going to do? Is he going to walk or is Cohen going to open the bank vault and keep him? But I like the way the Astros are playing right now. But I'll be honest, I did not expect Seattle to beat, Toronto. And I feel bad for my brother in anger, Greg, about, I can't believe they blew
what a horrible loss.
Loss.
Horrible
I cannot believe they lost yesterday.
You're up at home 8-1.
Yeah. It was tremendous. But Seattle's playing with hey, we got nothing to lose. They're playing loose, and that is a dangerous type of team to come playoff time.
I think the youngest team in Major League Baseball is Cleveland. I think the fourth youngest team is Seattle. So those teams are both making. The only annoying thing is if the Mets lose, I got to root for the Dodgers to get to the World Series because I'm not rooting for Philly. I'm not rooting for Atlanta, and I'm not going to root for the Padres who just if they beat the Mets. Imagine how good the Padres would be if they had Tatis in the lineup.
Nah. I think they're, no disrespect to Tatis. I think they're doing fine without him, believe it or not.
George, he's a generational talent.
He is, but there's that but. There's something about him, generational talent, but I don't know. I just can't put my finger around it. There's just something there that I don't trust.
See, the problem with you is you're so spoiled because all your teams are good, except the one we're going to get to right now with the Rams. George, what is going on with the Rams? They look sluggish. You cannot have Allen Robinson have 9 catches on the year. They're 2-2, and they're 26 in total offense. What is happening?
Well, one of the big things is we're seeing what they're doing to the Rams is what the defenses did to Kansas City last year. They're playing deep. They're taking away the deep threat. They're going to force the Rams to drive the ball down the field. We're not going to give up the big play. They're playing that quarters defense, playing that soft shell coverage. Two, the Rams really don't have a deep threat right now. Van Jefferson has been back from that knee injury. They don't have anyone they can trust going down the field. And I agree. I've been screaming from week 1, get Robinson the damn ball. I sounded like Keyshawn Johnson. Give me the damn ball. He's not targeting him. And what he's basically doing is he's taking away half the field away from himself. I'm talking about McVay and Stafford. You got to get Robinson more involved. You went out and got him in free agency for this reason. He did the same thing last season with Robert Woods in the beginning. He wasn't really going to him. And as the season progressed, he started going to him. But you have to get Robinson involved. You got to do it. And McVay against San Francisco, he abandoned the running game way too quick. 48 passes, 18 runs. He's not going to win this way. The Rams offense is better when they run the ball. In the 2 games that they won, they were more balanced. They ran the ball, I believe, like 23, 25 times, and you saw them winning. They're not, and across the board, scoring is down in the NFL this year.
Yeah, no, it is. And speaking of that, Aaron Rodgers just on 4th and goal, just threw the pass that got deflected. Giants are going to win 27-20 over the Packers. My friend Andrea picked this game early on. She had the Giants winning. Giants are 4-1. Wow. What is going on?
Yeah, you know what? Everyone dumps on Daniel Jones. He's he's a game manager in a sense.
Saquon Barkley's just carrying that team.
That's comeback player of the year. I think.
Yeah.
The way he's going right
great.
now. He's a stud right now. He's back to his Penn State days.
Let's talk about your team's defense. Again, 27th giving up. They can't get off the field.
No,
they're 27th on 3rd down, giving up a first down. They're giving up a first down, George, 46% of the time. Where's the pass rush? Where's the lockdown quarters? What has happened?
Well, again, I'm going to go to the San Francisco games. One thing I really noticed, Raheem Morris has the secondary. They're playing off the ball. And what did Jimmy G do? Quick slants inside, quick little dig routes.
3-step drop, boom.
3-step drop, boom. And Morris never really brought the defense up, the cornerbacks. You got to change your defense. And he just didn't make the adjustments. And San Francisco just took it to him. They physically dominated them. And I never make excuses.
Listen, they're 6-0. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is 6-0 against Sean McVay. You pointed out Sean McVay won when it counted in the NFC
Yeah.
Championship game. But George, they didn't look good against Atlanta either. The Rams have
No.
not looked like a dominant team.
No, and I brought this up during the offseason when we did the season preview. When you win a championship, it shows a lot of character. And I'm not saying that the Rams aren't trying, but how much effort are you putting in the offseason like you did? You got that hunger to get the title. You have to be even hungrier to keep it and defend it. And I'm just wondering, are we seeing that with some of the players?
Aaron Donald said something that was very interesting. He said that if I didn't win a championship, I probably would have retired. But now I'm so hungry to win another one. That's why I came back. So I get what you're saying. So I don't think that it's Donald. I think it's just
No.
I think it's just the rest of the team's mindset.
Yeah, and there is a lot of injuries, but that's no excuse because every team has injuries. You gotta have the next man up mentality, and they haven't really consistently shown it. They're like I said, San Francisco dominated them, and I had to tip my hat. I go that game, when they didn't score in the red zone on that first drive, I'm like, it's going to be a long
Trouble.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Huge matchup today against the 3-1 Dallas Cowboys. Break this game down. Give us a few keys. We got about 5-6 minutes left. Who do you think is going to win? It is in LA. I don't believe in Cooper Rush like most people are. I just don't think he's an elite quarterback. He's a backup for a reason. Do the Rams get off the schneid here?
I think they do if they run the ball because you can run on Dallas. If they try to throw 48 passes like they did against San Francisco, Dallas is going to beat him easily. If he stays balanced, you can run on the Cowboys defense. You're not going to pass on them. You're not going to have a huge game. They haven't I think Tom Brady threw for 212 yards in week 1. No other quarterback has thrown for over 200 yards against them. Their defense is tremendous.
But you bring up a good point because one of the things I think that is a weakness in Kyle Shanahan, but it's also his strength, is no matter what, he never abandons the run. And I think Sean McVay has a lot of Andy Reid in him. If the running game's not going early, he wants to throw 50 times. Sean McVay abandons the run so many times. Does he not have confidence in his run blocking, or it's just his makeup? Because one of the reasons why Kyle Shanahan beats the Rams all the time is they control the clock, they wear the defense down, and they keep running whether they get 1 yard or 10 yards.
Yeah, with Sean McVay, sometimes it's like a little Jekyll and Hyde because there are days he's going to stick to the running game no matter what. And yeah, there are games where, okay, I'm going to get away from it. And I've said this from day one with him. His offense is better when they run the ball.
You've said that even when Jared Goff threw 45 times against Kansas City and they won, we both said that's fool's goals. That's not how you win if you're the Rams.
Exactly. Yeah, even if they don't have to crack 100 yards running, but they got to run the ball. But today they got to run it at least 25 times.
Okay.
For them to have a chance against the Cowboys. If like I said, if Stafford throws 48 passes like he did Monday night, Dallas is going to win. They can't pass protect right now. I mean, the 7 sacks Monday night. If they try to drop back that much, Dallas is just going to pin their ears back. And Micah Parsons, Greg Lawrence, they're gonna have a field day against that Rams offensive line because right now they're doing it. Excuse my language, they are doing a shitty job at pass protection.
I agree. But again, I think Sean McVay is a very good offensive coach.
Well, he is.
If he knows the pass protection is not there, I want to do some quick screens, wide receiver screens, running back screens. I want to drop back and do a draw. Let the defense come at you and just attack it. He hasn't done that because he loves the long 35, 40-yard pass down the middle of the field.
Yeah, and you're not going to see that this year. They're playing again. Defenses are doing to the Rams what they did to Kansas City last year, and we saw Mahomes struggle for most of the year last year until they adjusted. McVay's going to have to adjust his offense a little bit. Okay, run. You're not going to get that 35-yard post route. Okay, now let's run the 10 to 15-yard dig routes. Let's run the curl routes. Let's run on the flats. Let's run the skinny post, a little, the quick post. You have to do that. But bottom line is Robinson's got to get involved. 9 catches in 4 games is pathetic. How many millions of dollars are you paying this guy?
I run out of the first 10 scripted plays, the first 4 plays are getting Robinson involved. Like I said 2 weeks ago, Jonathan Taylor for the Colts, the best running back in the league, arguably, ran the ball 9 times. You give him 9 touches in every quarter, not for an entire game. Okay, who wins this game and why? As the Packers just got a safety, the Giants ran it out. They're punting with 10 seconds left. They're going to throw a Hail Mary. We'll keep you posted. Who wins this
Wow.
game and why, George?
Uh, my heart says the Rams are going to win it. And when I did my preview for it, I do believe McVay's going to make the proper adjustments. They're gonna have to really emphasize stopping the run on the Cowboys, and they're gonna have to force Cooper Rush to win the game. And I don't think you could put that kind of pressure on his shoulders. Like you said, he is a backup for a reason. I do have the Rams winning in a hard-fought game, 21-17, but that's predicated on McVay staying with the run. If he doesn't, then Dallas is going to beat him by about 10 points.
Do you still have the Rams winning the division, or do you have San Francisco winning it?
I have San Francisco winning it as of now.
Okay, but Rams make the playoffs, obviously.
Yeah, Rams will make the playoffs, but right now you got to give San Francisco the edge. I think they're right now they're the better overall team.
Okay, George, I do this trade in a heartbeat. I trade Russell Westbrook for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner. Miles Turner's 15-7. Buddy Hield has led the league in 3-point field goals over the last 4 or 5 years. Everyone thinks that it's Steph Curry or someone else. No, it's Buddy Hield. Why are the Lakers hesitant on making this trade?
Because they don't want to include the 2 unprotected first-round picks. That's the only reason why.
Get rid of them. It's LeBron. He's not going to play with rookies.
Yeah, that's the only reason why this deal hasn't gone through. Indiana is ready to pull the trigger, but they want those 2 future first-round picks that are unprotected. And Perlinka, who, by the way, got a contract extension yesterday.
Well, how did that happen?
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like,
how did that happen?
I wanted to know, was it Jim Buss? Did he come back to the Lakers?
I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, so he does not want to include those draft picks.
The only way I think that could happen is they don't want LeBron to think that he has all the power. So if this guy gets a contract extension, maybe that's what, we're running the show here.
Yeah, Perlinka, wise up, get your head out of the sand. And if you get these guys, the hell with the first round picks. They're going to be low. They're not going to be lottery picks. You're going to be in the playoffs. You're going to be championship contenders. Make the damn trade. Get rid of Westbrook. Break those guys. Get rid of your future first round picks. They're not going to be top tier. I shouldn't say that. They're not going to be lottery picks. Make the damn deal. Yeah. Jerry West would have done this no, we wouldn't be going through this with Jerry West. I shouldn't say that.
Common sense just does this. LeBron's going to be there at least for another year or two. He doesn't play with rookies. Either you have Anthony Davis, you traded all the picks, you won a title in the bubble. Now you have a chance to bring 2 quality starters, a guy who can rebound, a guy who has defensive interior presence, and a guy who can protect, who do all the dirty work that Anthony Davis doesn't want to do. And you have a guy who the Lakers desperately need and someone who can shoot the 3. What are they waiting for?
I have no idea. Dr. Buss has got to be in his grave looking like I left my team for this. This is what I left my family.
But I will say they did win a title. They won a title.
Yeah. And I do think Jeannie Buss is a good owner. It's just LA fans, Laker fans were spoiled with Dr. Buss. He knew how to get the job done. He stepped back, let Jerry West do what he had to do. Even Mitch Kupchak, when he took over, I thought he did a tremendous job. And hell, he got Pau Gasol, as a GM, which is still mind-boggling on how he was able to pull that trade off. But yeah, Perlinka, he was an agent for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of him.
If this team stands pat, and let's say they stand pat, do you have them as a top 5 team in the West? And if they make the trade, I think they're top 5 in the West. If they don't, I think they're an 8 seed at best.
I agree with you. If they stand pat, unless they surprise us, if AD stays healthy. I heard he was motivated in the offseason, was actually working out, brought in some people to help. So, we might see a different AD this year. We do, then, they could be, if they stand pat, they could be a 4 seed. But the way the last 2 years, I have them an 8 seed at best if they stay healthy. If they make that trade, I think they're a top 3 team.
Yeah.
In the West.
Okay, George, final question. Thanks so much for having you on. Sorry you had some internet connection. We would have got you on earlier. Do the Mets win tonight, George?
I think they do. In spite of Buck Showalter, I think they do. On paper, they are the better team. I think Lindor is going to have a hell of a game tonight. My only concern is Bassett a big game pitcher? We don't know what he really would have done with Oakland. So that's the big concern. Musgrove, we know, can pitch.
Yeah.
I thought Snell was going to shut him down, but then I realized the Mets feast on left-handed pitching.
Yeah, they do. And
So-
and when you talk about Lindor, I don't know if you saw my opening rant. Carl Ravage, I think 3 or 4 times last night, was calling Francisco Lindor Jose Reyes.
Oh,
Like
Ravage, what are you
3
doing?
or 4 times. This is the worst broadcasting team in the history of ESPN, by the way.
Well, they got David Cohn. I'm sorry. I mean, David Cohn was a hell of a player, but he's not a broadcaster.
No, but again, Jose Reyes has
Yeah.
not played with the Mets. He was there till 2011, and then he came back for a couple of years. He hasn't been there since 2018. 4
Yeah.
times, Carl Ravage is calling Francisco Lindor Jose.
Yeah,
They're not even the same number.
It could have been worse. He could have called him Dave Concepcion.
Yes, or he could have called him like John Stearns or some classic Mets. Someone said if Ron Darling wasn't in the booth next to him, he'd be like, Ron Darling's available in the pen. Like, come on, Carl. All right, George, thanks so much. How can we follow you? How can we support you? When is your next article dropping?
Well, actually, my next article will be after the game today. I'll have the playoff preview for the Dodgers against the Mets or the Padres. So I'll have that article up tomorrow. Obviously, my Ram article for the next week's game will be up probably Wednesday or Thursday. Andrea's going to live. I got to throw this in. I'm going to go slumming tonight. I'm actually going to go see a Clipper game.
Are you really?
Raphael's in town.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, so he actually got tickets for the Clippers game. So the only reason I'm going is they're going to be in a suite, and I haven't seen Raphael in years, so it's a great chance to hang out. He goes,
Listen,
hey, I got tickets.
hang out. That dude is big time. That dude.
Oh, big time, yeah,
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he's huge. So I'm gonna go. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go slumming. I'm gonna go see all the selfies the Clippers put up. And
how long does it take you to get to the stadium?
it's gonna. I don't know. The game's at 7:30. A friend of mine's picking me up. We're gonna leave about 6:30. We'll get there plenty. I mean, it's the Clippers. It doesn't matter if I get there for tip off or not. But I had to throw that little dig in though. Sorry, I had to do it.
That's so funny. That's so
but
funny.
I am. The Clippers are they're a good team this year. I'm actually curious to see them live. I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna love the Clippers. No, the only Clippers
Listen,
I actually like are the
John
ones with my
Wall's
hair.
there. John Wall's there now, so we'll see what happens. Play John Wall 18 minutes a night. Who knows?
Okay,
So
here's my
I think the
reaction to
Clippers.
that.
I think the Clippers, if healthy, are a top 4 team in the West. But
Oh, I agree. They are.
But
I mean,
Kawhi Leonard, the guy's never healthy.
No, I think the way it's going right now, I'm gonna lose that bet to Andrea, and I'm gonna have to send her a Clipper warm-up jacket. I mean, I'm already prepared for that. And I'll be honest, I like to give her a hard time, but I'm actually expecting the Clippers to have a better record. I'm expecting to lose my bet this year, and I'll get the information from you so I can send the
Listen,
the
make
jacket to
sure you take some pictures, and I'll make sure while you guys are at the game, I don't send you my TikTok videos because I'm sure you're getting sick of them.
I love watching those. Send them. Keep sending them. But I'm going to do what the Clippers do. I'll take selfies over there.
There you go. Enjoy the game. Thanks so much for coming on. Good luck to the Rams. George has the Rams beating the Cowboys. And I think you have the Dodgers going to the World Series, correct?
Yeah, I got them going to the World Series. But if they play the Mets, it's going to be interesting because we already know for the Dodgers, Urdias, Kershaw, Tyler Anderson are going to start the first 3 games.
We don't know. We don't know what's going on with the Mets. And I don't like that it's a one-day rest. Man, you make the playoffs. Stop rushing these games. I want to see the best pitchers go against the best pitchers well rested. I don't want to see 4 games in 5 nights.
The only reason they're doing that was because of the lockout, because they have to get it done by a certain amount of time. So in that sense, I think it benefits the Dodgers, but it's the Mets feast on left-handed pitching. So it's going to be interesting if they get the Mets. And like I said, the Padres, they already know each other. So that's going to be interesting. But okay, before we go, how concerned are you about Scherzer?
The thing with Scherzer is, he was hurt this year, so I wasn't concerned because I thought he would, because he was rested, he'd be great. But if you look at DeGrom coming off injury, Scherzer coming off injury, they just don't have the zip. I mean, the Padres are not a fastball hitting team. You'd think they would be with Machado, Soto, and those guys, but they're not, and they were teeing off on him. He has not looked right since he got shelled by the Atlanta Braves. Scherzer is shot. His arm is shot. He's exhausted.
He had run on the four-seam fastball, which no one has run on a four-seam fastball. Yeah. I still think he has issues with that oblique injury.
It could
even though he's saying he's fine. And DeGrom, I was concerned. Dodgers and the Mets, DeGrom scares me. Is he getting to that point? Because every pitcher goes through it during the season. Well, they get a little tired. And, you know, he came in later in the year. Is he hitting that point? Because I know he had 8 Ks yesterday. How did he I didn't watch the game. My son had a game, so I didn't see it.
Again, he struggled at times, but what I liked in the last inning, he threw 101. So he had something in the tank, but I think the whole Mets team, for whatever reason, is exhausted. They look tired. Last night they won because Lindor hit a home run, Alonso hit a home run, and Jeff McNeil, who led the league in batting, came through with a big bases loaded hit up the middle. So if those 3 players aren't, again, the Mets have guys 1 through 7 who are contributing. 8 and 9 are automatic outs. And against elite teams or great pitchers, you can't have it. You can't have first and second and your 7, 8, and 9 guys are coming out and it's a double play. Or it's second and third, the 8th guy strikes out, the 9th guy flies out, and then you got to rely on Brandon Nimmo. You can't do it. The Mets don't have enough hitting. And if they're not elite pitching, they can't win a World Series. I hope they win tonight. I don't think they'll beat the Dodgers, but I just want the season to extend.
Okay, now I'm going to say this about McNeil. Congratulations on the batting title. I thought it was Bush League. He sat out the last game.
Well, no, here's the deal. He has, other than Lindor and Alonso, he's played so many games. So he played a week before he played the doubleheader. They were like, sit down. He's like, I'm not sitting down. The last game of the season, listen, Freddie Freeman went into a terrible slump, right?
Oh, he did. He ended up two for his last 15.
Right. So it's not so much that McNeil won it. Freddie Freeman lost it because he became so. And then in the last game of the season, what do you go, like 3 for 5 or something like that?
The last game he went 2 for 3 the last game.
Now, McNeil didn't sit out because of that. The whole Met team sat out.
No, I know that. I got to throw a little dig there. And McNeil, that's why I said congratulations. He had the way he ended the year. And that's one of my concerns about the Dodgers. They weren't hitting at the end of the year.
No, they weren't. They
were struggling.
I think the rest is going to help them. I really do. All right, George.
Help and hurt.
Thanks so much. We'll see you. Look forward to that article. Hopefully it'll be against the Mets so we could have another little rivalry going on. But I other than betting you, I keep losing on these rivalries here.
Yeah, that's why there's no bet in this series. I'll do a football bet, but I'm staying away from the playoff baseball bet. Regular season, we'll do another one.
All right. Talk to you later. Thanks so much. That was George Lopez. I want to thank all of you. We went a little bit over. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Remember, next Sunday I'm off. I am taking a mini vacation. I haven't been on vacation in 4 years, so I desperately need a break. Got to do some fun things out in Wisconsin. We will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time with me, A. Marie, and Brad Ward. Enjoy the games, everyone. And in the immortal words of Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back.
They were worried about